In Josh Bersin's 2020 HRTech report, he talks about how HR technology has rapidly evolved from being systems of record in the 1970s and the 80s to systems of talent in the 1990s and 2000, to until recently being what we call as systems of engagement, and now becoming typically what is now going to be called as systems of intelligence from 2020. Now, these trends have been applicable mostly in the enterprise segment. So where does that leave SMEs? Now, SMEs in India have been largely using payroll systems over the past few years, but given the disruptions we are seeing in the work and business environment with COVID, are we going to be seeing an acceleration in adoption of HR tech by SMEs? So what challenges are SMEs facing in the new normal? Will COVID be the discontinuity to drive HR tech adoption? What are the early technologies that will be adopted by SMEs? And what do they need to do to drive usage of these HR applications? Friends, welcome to the HROne Future of Work webinar series. The theme of our webinar today is HR tech adoption by SMEs. Now, most of the conversations, webinars, and research reports that you see around are largely addressing the enterprise market. So we felt it was really important and pertinent for us to have something which talks about this subject for SMEs. And today I have with me a group of business leaders with a deep understanding of the SME segment. I'm pleased to have with us Sameer Vakil, Vishal Dembla, Karan Jain, and my name is Thomas Abraham. I would request each of us to briefly introduce ourselves, and perhaps we could start with Sameer.
Thanks, Thomas, and good to be here, and welcome everybody to the session today. Very quick introduction to myself. I currently run a startup by the name of GlobalLinked. GlobalLinked is an SME business networking solution. So you would think of it as parallel to Facebook or LinkedIn. Facebook you would use for connecting socially, LinkedIn for connecting for maybe professionals, how we connect with each other. But then if you're a small business, GlobalLinked is a place where you can make business connections and grow your business. In a past life, I was last with Citibank in New York. I was helping them build a bank of the future across 50 countries globally. Before that, I was in Tokyo for 4 years as president of Citi Cards Japan. Earlier, I ran MasterCard for South Asia. So I was president for MasterCard South Asia, the 7 countries in and around India. Earlier, I founded the joint venture between G Capital and SBI with the SBI Cards business. So I was the founding CEO of that company. And for several years before that with HSBs, largely in consumer banking and payment cards. So that's me.
Yeah, so thanks, Sameer. So I must say that I've known Sameer for many years, and I've really seen the GlobalLinked platform grow tremendously, from, many years ago with just one partnership to now, several of them across several countries. So, it's great to have you with us, Sameer.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vishal, over to you now.
Thanks, Thomas. Thank you, Sameer. So I work with one of the largest recruiting firms of the world, PersolKelly. We are around $8 to $10 billion revenue firm, existing since 70 plus years on planet now. What I manage or what I look after in Kelly is the search business and also new initiatives, which is anything to do with HR tech or to automate our workflows, or what should be our go-to-market strategy, specifically in new age of work per se, is what my role is currently in PersolKelly India. In my previous avatar, I've been a failed HR tech entrepreneur, wherein 2 of my HR tech startups are successfully shut now. From start to shut, I would possibly say. And I've also worked with a couple of other startups like Let's Venture and let's say within HR fraternity for last 14 years. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so thanks, Vishal. I think Vishal has a really good, interesting background, having worked both with on the investor side of the business, done startups, and now working with a large consulting firm. And I'm sure he'll bring some very interesting perspectives to our conversation today. Yeah, over to you, Karan.
Yeah. Hi guys. So firstly, I would like to thank Sameer, Vishal, and you to be collaborating together on this platform today. So hi, I'm Karan Jain. I'm Executive Director at Unicops Group. Uh, we are into three verticals. We are an IT company operating in three verticals. First being business automation. So we help SMEs automating their end-to-end processes. So we have 1,000+ SME customers in India, and we are number one partner for SAP Business One in Asia Pac. Then secondly, we do a lot of e-governance projects. We have delivered 200 e-governance project with state and central government, being education, being the core focus domain. And 8 years back, we started a venture, HROne, with the aim to build a futuristic HCM suite. Today, we have 400 plus customers with 3.5 lakh users using our product. So yeah, so this is about me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Karan. And as I've mentioned before, the little known fact about Karan is that he used to be a national level table tennis player in his past life. Yeah, so that's that. So friends, my name is Thomas Abraham, and I'm an advisor to HRTech and SaaS companies, helping them with their business strategy, go-to-market, and global partnerships. In fact, one of my portfolio companies was recently acquired by a global consulting firm. When you do have the time, do visit my YouTube channel, which is called Musings with Thomas Abraham, that has conversations around HR tech, software as a service, and future of sales. So moving right into our topic, Sameer, let me bring you in first. So Sameer, there is plenty being written and discussed, as I'd mentioned in the introduction as well, about enterprises and some amount of stuff written about SMEs as far as business transformation during COVID times is concerned. Now, you run GlobalLinked, which has over 300,000 SMEs in your network. And before we jump into more specifics of HR and HR technology, I think it'll be really nice for our audience to understand and if you can really talk them through some of the challenges that SMEs are facing in the new normal, and what's the kind of business transformation you see happening in this segment.
Sure. Thanks, Thomas. And I think this is a very important subject, and for all of us to get our views around this. And we've spent a lot of time with our SMEs talking to them. We've got a COVID group within GlobalLinked, which has a fairly wide following, talking to a number of providers, etc. But the first thing I think we need to understand about COVID especially, and the new normal that we refer to, is we've all started from absolutely the same starting line. There's nobody ahead of the other because there is nobody who's an expert at COVID. I think it's taken us all by surprise across the world. There's not a single expert at COVID and what the implications of that are. So effectively, we are all discovering the new normal together. And one of the things that I have seen definitely amongst the SMEs and even outside of that is, in order to form a view, people are checking with each other, communities are starting to form, and combined opinions are coming together. And like I said, if anybody claims to be an expert, I think they need to own up and say that's not the case. They just are using past information and trying to extrapolate. So what comes up over here, I think the new normal is about how do we create value from here onwards. And value has always, and I'm referring to value and not valuation. So, and value can only come from two stakeholders that you can address. One is employees and the second is customers. If you focus on these two areas, what do I need to do better with my employees given that things are changing? And what do I do to my customers? And what can I do for my customers at a time like that? The only opportunity that COVID and the new normal provides us is to even think outside of our own domains. But generally, we have certain areas of expertise, we have certain infrastructures we've created, so you work off that. Now, what is coming through in this is people who have been completely open in their minds, not carrying any baggage, and have really been able to scout opportunities and have been completely unafraid of technology, are the ones who've been the early adapters, even in the very early stage of this new normal. I'll just take a couple of examples of very typical small businesses. Take a retailer, for example, who's on GlobalLinked and used to do B2B F&B supplies. And suddenly when the restaurant stopped, when the banquet hall stopped, when the hotel ceased to operate in a normal way, they suddenly saw that there was very little for them to do. And what they've really done is they took their delivery vans that they used for B2B and started going into communities and started selling directly to consumers, something they had never done before. But they were open to doing that. And in that process, they completely discovered insights which were not available to any of us. We couldn't have fathomed that in communities, there are people who are very happy to be volunteers and take orders for an entire community. So the delivery person can actually drop it at the gate. And then the rest of the part is taken care of by volunteers within the community. And such things have started to emerge. So I think we have to be very open to new business models to try and stretch the boundary and to embrace technology. And that's what the new normal is going to be about. And that's what some SMEs have already started to do. They've done that in the textiles industry with PPE kits and other such things that they're creating. They've done it with the restaurant business where they've gone into dark kitchens and so on and so forth. So these are new concepts that are coming out, but they are almost here to stay. They're not a fad. They're not here for a short period of time. And that's the recognition a lot of the SMEs are starting to do. But coming together and building a community is really the way forward for more SMEs to do better and to spread that knowledge and expertise.
Yeah. So thanks, Sameer. So Sameer, just as a quick follow-up, I mean, is there some distinct trend that you see with the different clusters? So, for example, we were just chatting a short while ago that you mentioned that typically in your in the 170 odd thousand SMEs that are there in India, about 50% of them would have less than 50 employees, and they would be, about 25% over 100. So, is there any differences that you're seeing in the transformation based on size, or is it some other factor which is driving the transformation?
I think size has always been a hindrance for the smaller institutions to not grow as rapidly or to not adapt as rapidly. But I think COVID has changed that. And that's the observation we are seeing. And I can just pull one example for you. As the lockdown began, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry reached out to us and said, can GlobalLinked help us get essential commodities to people in their homes, especially in the smaller towns? In little matter of a few days, we had a solution called Kirana Linker out. And you'd be surprised that in a matter of less than 3 to 4 weeks, roughly 5,000 mom and pop Kirana stores in about 150 cities of the country had digitized themselves completely. So suddenly that fear of technology was lost. The willingness to change had come in, and the smaller organizations were more adept at picking up things wherever it could be borrowed. So I think we just need to make that effort, and people adapt very, very fast.
Yeah. Thanks, Sameer. And Sameer, I think you very aptly mentioned that it's about building value both for your customers and for the employees, who are the two critical constituents. So now, moving from the value to the customer, I thought maybe we could just move into the value for the employees, and perhaps talk about how HR technology could potentially be adopted by SMEs. So, I'm thinking that we are actually now wanting to run a poll for the audience. So I would request all the audience to, click on an answer. The question really is, for this poll is, will COVID drive faster adoption of HR technology by SMEs? The three options: very likely, somewhat likely, unlikely. It should pop up on your screen, and we would request you to, to sort of quickly click on what you feel is actually going to happen in terms of adoption. Yeah, so we'll give you about 30 seconds, and it'll be nice to see, the poll results. And I think, Karan, in about 30 seconds, you could just share that with us so that we get some sense for what the audience is also saying. Yeah. And yeah.
So,
and I think, okay. So yes, very likely is 65%, somewhat likely 33%, and unlikely 2%. So I think it's sort of quite interesting, and we'll move right. We'll get in Vishal for the next phase of this conversation. So Vishal, in a way, the audience has given their verdict, but we'd be happy to hear a little more detailing from you. So Vishal, for a long time that I remember, and I've been working in this for a number of years. Typically, it's been a very tough market to crack, right? Because it's very owner-driven, and they would only look at tools which perhaps have some short-term immediate value and so on. And I've seen that one of the applications that has sold by the truckload historically has been accounting applications. And in fact, there have been discontinuities in the market like VAT and GST, which have given tremendous fillip to growth of the accounting software business. Now, likewise, when you look at COVID again could be a potential significant discontinuity, which can be very, very disruptive from the employee standpoint. And and there is some research here which was done in the US by a non-profit called Connected Commerce Council, which said that approximately 76% of small businesses are now relying more on digital tools during COVID, and also echoed by Sameer in what he mentioned in terms of a large number of SMEs adopting it. So my question really is that, will this discontinuity created by COVID truly drive adoption of HR tech in India within SMEs? And are there any early trends that you're seeing wearing your hat as a consultant?
So I'll answer it in two ways, Thomas, to start with.
Yeah.
The trend which just came out with what viewers just entered, that 65% for sure the adoption would actually increase. The first trend that I'm observing, otherwise, and I've actually made a note of it. So COVID is actually a chief change management officer, according to me, and that's the first trend that I'm observing. And when I say change management officer, is because it has actually preponed the tech adoption within the SME space, is what I look at it, by good 5 to 10 years, according to me. What should have been, let's say, adopted in 2025 or 2030, I think courtesy COVID, which is our chief change management or chief transformation officer, things are started getting adopted fast, is what I would say, the first trend.
Yeah.
The second trend that I'm also seeing is more towards under the space of, let's say, I have 5-6 themes wherein I'm seeing, let's say, if I look at HR tech, where the trends are emerging. So I'm seeing a lot of movement, let's say, in clients and specifically SMEs or enterprise. They want to adopt something on virtual communication or in collaboration space for that matter. So I think the conversation within that space now is not just about, I know about Zoom or I know about Microsoft Teams. On a lighter note, the conversation is about, I use this wallpaper also for that matter. So which means the understanding of the education level is reaching at not just elementary, but possibly at intermediate level under this category. The third thing that I'm also seeing is under engagement and wellness category, wherein again, because of COVID, the HR is very much concerned about our workforce and how we can possibly keep them engaged and simultaneously look after their wellness from the mental and psychiatric health support. Rather, I would possibly quote our example only over here, where in Kelly we've adopted something known as Your Dost as a platform, just to, under the wellness category, just to look after our employees. And that's predominantly because of COVID. The fourth category that I'm also seeing specifically for HR technology is video interviewing platforms are finally able to find their friends now. They've been fairly expensive. They were not really the necessary commodity till some time back. I think finally I'm seeing a trend towards video interviewing also getting adopted. The another trend that I'm also seeing now, it is okay to hire employees in remote location. That trust element which was missing, I think courtesy COVID, we are going back and we are okay now. A lot of companies that we are having conversation with are saying, we are absolutely fine as long as the person is just being productive for us. You hire us in Timbuktu, we are absolutely okay. And I'll correlate it even for that matter, let's say on product hunt. So I'm one of those hunters over there. And let's say in last 2 to 3 months, the number of remote job platforms which have emerged over there, usually in every month, there are good 2 to 3 new remote job platforms that I'm seeing now, which is directly indicating to the new category, the remote jobs, whether it's technology or non-tech, are basically getting picked up over there. The sixth is the tools which are facilitating any kind of remote working is where the trend also is going towards. And last but not the least, from the measurement of performance perspective, because our workforce is very remote, what are those tools, what are those things which can actually help organizations in measuring the performance of remote employees? I think these are the seven clear-cut buckets trends that I'm seeing, for that matter, it is going towards. Now, these are overall buckets, but if I, let's say, translate into technology side, I think SMAC as a technology is finally getting its footing under HR tech, whether be it social, be it mobile, be it analytic, or be it cloud. I think any kind of tool which possibly is a sum total of all this, or possibly has one or two of these kind of technologies under the seven themes that I spoke about, and a combination of this is where the trends are coming.
Yeah. So thanks, Vishal. But just as a follow-up, I want to focus a little more on the on smaller organizations, on SMEs. So one of the theories that I have is that, or the hypothesis that I have is that payroll is to HRMS what accounting is to ERP.
Correct.
Right. So will we therefore now see a big spike in the payroll business? As that payroll perhaps is the true building block for any HR tech adoption. That's the first thing that you need to do. So focusing specifically on that payroll business, do you see now a significant, because I've come across lots of companies with even 300, 400 employees who don't have proper automation of payroll. Neither do they outsource it, neither do they do anything fully automated. So will this now give a huge fillip to payroll, which is a very, very fundamental, area that SMEs particularly. So I'm just looking at smaller organizations, let's say below 500 employees. You think that is something which we can expect?
So, Thomas, when it comes to payroll and HR tech for SMEs, I think payroll was, is, and would be the mainstay, according to me. The way I'm seeing payroll and compliances, for that matter, for SMEs specifically, let's say if their adoption was less than 45% of SMEs were adopting, I think the adoption now is going towards 75, 80%. It's a necessity because all your employees are managed remotely. So how easily can you manage payroll and your compliances via a good HRMS tool? I think for sure.
Right. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So in fact, I ran a poll recently with some HR, not recently, but this was pre-COVID, with some HR heads, and there were certain points which were highlighted as drivers for adoption by them. And for them it was, and only I'm specifically about SMEs, it was more about the nature of business, how complex is the business, is it multi-locational, multicultural, and so on and so forth. So really from a people perspective. The second thing was really the vision of the promoters. And, and most promoters historically have, for them, HR has been more of an admin function, right? So they really haven't given it its due importance. And the third thing, obviously, was that is there some direct cost saving that will come out of us deploying something? And then in my conversation a few days ago with some HR heads, the writing is on the wall. They say that this is the time to strike as promoters are looking for solutions. What a change overnight, literally. And, and in link to that, I was talking to a business owner recently, and he did mention that one of the biggest challenges that he faced was managing their employees, given that work from home now is significant or perhaps the only option. And unlike large enterprises, SMEs always believed, and in an in-office environment, people like to keep physical track of what's actually happening. And he was actually asking for a host of recommendations, in terms of technology. So let me just bring in Karan here into this discussion. And so Karan, it's sort of very clear that people issues have, as outlined by both, Sameer and Vishal, have really come to the forefront with COVID. So now, and we know that HR tech, and Vishal has outlined quite a few points here, but from your perspective and looking at the SME space, how do you see HR tech becoming the driver for digital adoption at SMEs?
So thanks, Thomas. So you rightly said that SMEs pre-COVID, used to work from, all team members used to work from the same office, rather same floor, not even 2 floors, because SMEs, there is a huge collaboration that SMEs want. And So with this COVID, now everyone is working in silos. Secondly, the performance that was measured day in, day out, because team used to work with their managers and they were measured on daily basis. But now everyone working remotely, so performance management is a challenge that SMEs face. And third, like as a SME, all employees work very closely with top management or CXOs, and the culture is very family oriented, and that is the main core part of SME, and which is right now missing because everyone is remote. So to bridge all these gaps, I think HR Tech can play a role if HR Tech provides you better collaboration, helps you align your goals, helps you engage with your employees virtually. So I think HR Tech can be a driver for digital adoption. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks, Karan. Moving over to you, Sameer. You have a large community. There are many other communities, clusters, and so on. So can we throw some light on the ecosystem being created within these communities to support SMEs? And are there some specific initiatives that you're running or you think is relevant to accelerate adoption of HR tech tools? For instance, is it payroll, HRMS, collaborative tools, and so on and so forth?
And I'll take this first, the community and the ecosystem part, and then come on to HR, because I think that's a very important subject and also the focus of the day. I think in terms of communities, I started by saying that given nobody's an expert at COVID and also defining the new normal, some of these communities have started naturally forming. People in neighborhoods talk to each other, people in the same business try and confer with each other, and people have become much more giving than they may have been in the past. It's just the nature of the way things are working out. What we are seeing on our platform, and we've always had structured groups, but I think there are 3 or 4 types of groups that are starting to form, which could be referred to as sub-ecosystems if you would like. One is you're starting to see this across industry, where different types of players are wanting to come together to collaborate and come up with even common solutions. I'll take the example of, let's say, exporters, for example. A lot of the exporters are coming together, and we are building for the Federation of Indian Exports Organization a virtual trade fair format where organizations who were not able to display their products and attend trade shows overseas, etc., still required to be able to exhibit their products, and then solutions are being found. But solutions are not being found for individual companies. They are being found as a community, and that group is coming together under one umbrella. The same way when you take retailers who've really suffered significantly over the last 4 months, the CIT, which is a representation of 70 million traders in the country, in the next few weeks is going to be launching a marketplace for retailers to start participating in e-commerce, even the smallest of retailers across the country. So we are seeing a lot of that kind of collaboration happen. The second form of collaboration that you're seeing is geographically. So in different cities, in different neighborhoods, people coming together and cooperating with each other and trying to work common solutions if they can. And the third one, which is actually very relevant to the discussion at hand, is you're starting to see that in professional areas or in functions. The HR community, similarly, I think a lot of people who would have been traditionally viewed as competitors in a certain sense are trying to come together and collaborate in various ways. And whether it happens to be taking a broader subject and significant areas of expertise and specialization, people are coming together and holding common forums because they realize it's the segment that needs to be grown, and there's a great opportunity for everyone to participate in that. Talking specifically about HR related solutions, I think by virtue of the way we operate as an organization, within GlobalLinked, there is a feature of a company intranet that can be created where people working remote are also able to feel part of one organization because you're seeing the same content at the same time. Solutions like Slack that was mentioned, etc., are examples of that. But those are the ways of engaging socially within a workspace. It's almost the softest entry point. Then you go on to solutions like payroll that you talked about. I think this space is also waiting for innovation. even the tech providers in HR actually have to think outside the box and think of this as an opportunity. And I'll just take one single example, something that we are doing ourselves, and I would encourage more people in HR tech to think along those lines. I'm just picking one slice, which is of an HRMS solution where you have a payroll solution embedded. Now, if you're able to offer that to SMEs, why would you not limit yourself only to that, but instead extend it to say, I would link it with a salary account with a bank. And when the employee salary accounts are going into the bank, why can't we ask the bank to be able to give an emergency line of credit to the employees of the company on the basis of the payroll that is coming out? Because you have history, you know what the average payout is, you know the average length of employment of the employee with the company. So I think the HR tech space itself needs to be open to innovation. And when you come up with that, it would make a compelling case for those people who are sitting on the fence and deciding whether or not to employ an HRMS solution. In my organization, we have employees coming up to us and asking for cash advance or for payouts because they have a emergency or some purchase needs to be made. But if that can be enrolled and rolled into the HRMS solution, which has got payroll and all of that together, I think there is very little reason why employers wouldn't adopt solutions which are tech-led, because like I said in the earlier segment, they're more open to technology today than ever before. And you're absolutely right, Thomas, when you said there couldn't be a better time. We've got all the tailwind. Now we need to come up with solutions that people are able to understand simply and implement in very, very simple terms.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And you really touched upon something which is close to my heart, which is HR technology in the flow of work. I think, and I think, you're right. People cannot just plug away with standard solutions. They have to innovate. Innovation is the key. And I recollect pre-COVID, a lot of companies, a lot of SaaS companies had said, hey, this is our product. This is the way we are, sort of take it or leave it kind of a thing, But now I think they need to search for opportunities and they need to figure out how do we not just present a standard proposition, but how do we actually create a solution with the components that we have on our platform.
Thomas, if I can just come in for a quick second. The simple mantra for that is if you can dovetail yourself into the user journey of who you are seeking to serve. So if people are working remote, if people have to do things differently today, how do you adapt your solution into that user journey or into that experience? Right. And once you've done that, it just becomes simpler. So
yeah, absolutely. Great points, Sameer. Let me just bring in, Vishal. So Vishal, really, as SMEs start to look at HR tools and solutions, my sense is that they would also require, a fair amount of support to get their processes in place and some of these tools implemented. And, we're not really talking about small SMEs here. We're talking about slightly larger ones, maybe 400 plus employees and so on. And, if you look at most such organizations, there is a huge void in terms of HR talent within these organizations. Most of them are pretty much operations-driven resources that most of these organizations have. And they may not quickly get good talent, when they start hunting for them in this particular situation. So now do you see, Vishal, a more active role for, let's say, consulting firms to facilitate this particular transition and business transformation? And what are some initiatives that companies such as yours are actually contemplating? And we were talking about SMEs, which are slightly larger than the small ones that we referred to earlier as well. Yeah.
Right. So there are two parts to it. One is, let's say, as a consulting firm, what we are doing internally, and number two, what we are possibly trying to do with our clients and for the ecosystem rather. Internally, yes, there is more focus on automation now, and which is split across, let's say, all parts of our workflow. But having said that, let's say for our external ecosystem, what we are trying to do is we are trying to give, let's say, a go-to-market outlet or a medium to different HR tech organizations in India. We are saying that we have a list of clients. We work with enterprises. We have around 40-45% of our clients are on SME side. And there is already a sales team that we have. There is already understanding of HR ecosystem that we have. Why not let's join forces and can we go to the market together? Number one. Number two, there's a lot of education and understanding that we are trying to provide of our learning in the HR space to what, let's say, the HR tech ecosystem may require. And as I said, it's a combination of forces which is possibly going in the market and taking the solution together. I think that's what, as a firm, that we are trying to bring to the ecosystem predominantly.
Yeah. So, thanks, Vishal. And now we just sort of want to dive a little deeper into the kind of technology tools that SMEs are likely to adopt. And Vishal, you did mention about quite a few of them earlier in the conversation, and Karan also did mention about a few. But we thought we'll run a little poll here with our audience. And the question is, what HR technology tools are SMEs likely to adopt? And we've tried to keep the tools as some very basic tools, because we feel that SMEs need to start their journey at some very basic level. So we've started. So the options are payroll, HRMS, attendance, productivity tracking, employee engagement. So we'll give about 30 seconds to our audience. So if the audience can, I'm sure you'll see it as a pop-up in your screen. If you can select maybe one or two or maximum three options, and put it in, it'll give us a sense for what are the technology tools that SMEs are likely to adopt. And we will use that as that data as an entry point into the next phase of our conversation. Yeah. So Karan, do we have some results?
Yeah. So I'll just share.
Yeah. So we have, it says that, payroll is close to 60%, and employee engagement, productivity tracking, remote attendance. So clearly, I think these are some points that we had discussed earlier as well, because SMEs struggle with tracking productivity. They struggle with remote attendance. So I think it sort of resonates quite well. So Karan, given the fact that you do a lot of, you've got a stack and you've got a suite and you understand the space well, what are some technologies, early technologies? And we're talking about people who are just starting their journey. A lot of SMEs are just starting their journey. And we've seen, as Sameer mentioned, 60% of his or 50% of the GlobalLinked base is employees, who basically have less than 50 employees, right? So it's significant. So when people are starting their HR tech journey, what are some of the early technologies that you would recommend?
Yeah. So thanks, Thomas. So adapting HR tech is a journey in itself. So one should start step by step. So to begin with, SMEs should identify what are the key challenges first they want to solve. Then they should go for that. And I personally recommend, if you are trying to solve multiple challenges at one time, then rather than going for point solutions, you should go for an integrated solution, because that will save your onboarding time, that will help you, that will give a better employee experience as well as a faster ROI to that. And looking at this scenario, there are three key things that I would recommend to a SME. First being, if as an organization, you are managing the productivity as per the time, then you need a mobile-based attendance with geo attendance so that you can track attendance at this time. Secondly, if you are tracking productivity on activity or goal-based, then a performance management system with a continuous feedback is a must. But if you are starting your performance management system, then I recommend that don't, like earlier we used to set yearly goals, but at this time, more agility is required than ever before. So I recommend to create monthly or quarterly goals in your performance management system with weekly initiatives and regular feedback, so that you can track your organization performance on a weekly or monthly basis. Then secondly, SME becoming is a very connected workplace, not because they have always been at one office, one floor. So now.
Yeah. So I think we've, briefly lost Karan, but some of the points that additionally, come to my mind, also based on some conversations that I've had with some HR heads, which maybe in addition to whatever has been mentioned, is this entire area around skilling. Because what has also happened is that, business models have changed. And with business models changing, there's a fair amount of upskilling and reskilling done required for employees. So I was talking to a business owner who runs a very successful, so Karan, I'm just coming to you, who runs a very successful direct selling business. And he did say that, overnight we've had to go online because none of the sales guys can be physically now available anywhere. So, and then the sales teams also have to, sell everything online. So there was a fair amount of investment in upskilling their entire sales organization, So I think a couple of interesting things. So Karan, you can carry on from wherever you left off.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. For a fraction of a minute, it was gone. Yeah. So I was there. Yeah. So I spoke about the performance management, how to track productivity. So next is the engagement. So you need an engagement platform because as SME being connected, so an engagement platform that can provide seamless communication from HR to organize to all the employees, plus where you can listen to your employees on regular basis, or where you can solve employee grievances and recognize and appreciate. So that is a piece that you used to do it on floor at office. Now, definitely you cannot provide the same from the platform. Through the platform, you can provide a similar experience to an employee. And lastly, a collaborative platform through which you can collaborate with your colleagues. Yeah. And last recommendation that what I would suggest is whenever you are using any HR tech, so see that it solves your today or tomorrow as well as your tomorrow's challenges. Reason being because I have seen a lot of SMEs change every year. They change their HR tech or any other tech. So whenever you take decision, take it for with a long time vision that which will solve your today's as well as tomorrow's vision.
Yeah. So the other very important thing that I see in this in the SME segment is that while people may buy applications, how do you get the employees to actually use the application? And that's been really plaguing a lot of organizations. So it'll be good to just go around the table and get some thoughts from each of you. So Sameer, any thoughts? How would you ensure that people actually use the application? So that's a big issue that we face in India particularly. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this is not very different from several decades ago. A lot of people in the meeting today may not have gone through that experience. For their benefit, I might just recount this. In banks, when we were trying to introduce computerization initially, there was a very high, obviously there was a union that wouldn't allow that to happen, and there was an adoption problem. And what was done in certain sections of the office, after 5 o'clock, you had computers with games loaded on them, and people started to play those games, and very soon they became fearless of the computer. Their keyboard skills, at that time you didn't have the mouse and other joystick, so the keyboard skills really went very high, and one day those computers disappeared, and what came actually were work computers. So you need a similar approach. I think the more things are gamified, and give a list of things you would do, but if you start employee engagement as a first thing, whether it's celebrating birthdays and wishing each other, for occasions, and celebrating a good order, or recognizing employees as a start, people start commenting, liking. That's what they do on Facebook, etc. Now they're doing it between colleagues, and that really starts to get the adoption. The next is to really start saying, okay, here's where you can mark your attendance, and you almost go in a reverse order by starting the gamification to begin with, and then take it into the serious application. Then even those serious applications, if they are woven into the journey, I think they just make for adoption to become much faster than it would otherwise take. I don't think it should be seen as policing. The moment it is seen as policing, people find ways to beat the system as well as probably delay the adoption. Whereas I think the more fun it is made, the faster people will take to it. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, thanks, Vishal. Thanks, Sameer. So, Vishal, any thoughts on any ideas from your side? Yeah.
So, one thought for sure is beautifully shared by Sameer. The second thought that I have is I think it should be more democratic. With the freemium layer is what I have realized has worked well with a couple of, let's say, HR products which have been adopted well. So what I mean is, let's say previously any kind of job posting, if you were supposed to do, your organization needs to buy it and needs to have a contract with the end player, and then only you can do a job post, let's say as a recruiter, for example. But there are, let's say, platforms now which allow you to do, for example, free job post, which basically means what they've done is they have democratized the entire process. The employees can themselves go, they don't need their organization or parent employer to buy the software. They themselves can do it. It's based on freemium model. They come back, they actually tell organizations, can we adopt this now? Because we're already using it, and then organizations go ahead and they buy, let's say, the premium model. Now, the good thing in this is it's a very bottoms-up approach in terms of already this has been used, tested, liked by the employees on free basis, and now organizations are buying it. So now it has not been pushed by organizations per se. So that's one approach that I've seen has worked very, very well. The second that I think is more as an HR tech player. I think when it comes to training, and which is becoming more on micro learning based systems now, somewhere I think for higher adoption, there should be more customized end user support in terms of training only. And what I mean by that is, usually, let's say there is an HR tech which is supposed to be bought, for example, in Kelly. Now, who would buy that system? Either it would be my MD, either it would be me, or possibly some other business head for that matter. 98 or 99% of adoption actually comes from the people who are supposed to use it. We would hardly use that in our day-to-day life. So the training needs to be done either with train the trainers who are with the system, number one, or possibly the end users who are with the program. I think as a step one only, possibly as an HR tech player, that should be integrated. I think these are the two models that I have seen possibly are working well in the products which have been, let's say, or HR tech products which have seen a better implementation or adoption.
Yeah, thanks. So, Karan, any additional points that you would like to add?
Sure. As a HR tech company, so what you said from an end user perspective, like training is very important. Yeah, what Sameer said, like gamification, if you can encourage them, if you have things that they like to do on that particular product, so at the same time you can get things done that as an organization you want. So very well said. But as a HR tech, so there are a lot of research, there are user experience that user wants when he lands on product. So we think from that perspective also that, so that as an organization training needs, so that whenever he lands on a product, he loves that product. Like the way you use Ola, Swiggy, Uber, you love it. When you do one transaction, then you start liking it and it grows. So the way when we design any product or any feature, so we try to do that. And also we have added a lot of gamification so that, and the engagement piece, so that people come and when they land on the product, they see something happening or something interesting. So, and then at the side, they do their operation work also. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there's just one point from my side, and that's one of my favorite points, which I have touted since my CRM days as well. It is that I think the question that everybody needs to answer is, what's in it for me? That is, what's in it for the employees and what's in it for their supervisors, and particularly what's in it for the employees. Because if the value is clear about what's in it for the employee, then as as Sameer was mentioning, we don't really need to police them. Otherwise, that becomes a big challenge. So let me just just bring in one quick research which was done by PwC, did an HR tech survey in 2020, and this is again for enterprises. So we have got very little data on SMEs. So, but I'll just quote this as for our benefit. So in their view, the top 5 in order of priority, first was incentives, which of course, we feel may or may not work. And second thing was gamification, which I think all of us concurred with. Third thing is also giving clarity to employees about how this HR tech journey is going to be. So we start here and we move there. So, people understand the complete journey. And the fourth thing is training. And the fifth thing is leadership communication. Right. So I think with that, we have pretty much covered, most of the points that we had in mind. And, so thank you so much, Sameer, Vishal, and Karan for that wonderful conversation. And I think there were lots of very interesting perspectives which came out. And one thing is for sure, I think, as someone said, the train has already left its station as far as HR tech is concerned for SMEs. So it's about time SMEs board it. But yes, the train needs to also adapt. The train needs to modify itself to make sure that it can add tremendous value to the people who are boarding the train. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to our audience for patiently, listening and hopefully enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much, all of you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Pleasure, all of you. Take care.